They brought him in on a Thursday, not dramatically, no police, no ambulance. Just his mother's hand on his arm and his father's voice saying, "This is what's best," in the tone people use when the decision has already been made. Marcus signed something at the front desk. He wasn't sure what. His eyes kept moving to the parking lot, watching their car pull out before the doors finished closing. He had a company. Had. That word already felt past tense before he'd even unpacked the single bag they'd allowed him. The facility was clean. Quiet in the specific way that institutions are quiet. Not peaceful but managed. Staff moved with purpose. Other residents moved carefully. Marcus moved like someone who was still deciding whether any of this was real. They took his phone on the second day. By then, he'd already sent 3 emails. He didn't panic. That was the thing no one seemed prepared for. They'd written "resistant to emotional processing" on a whiteboard during group, and he'd looked at it and thought, "No, I'm just not performing the emotion you've scheduled for me." His assigned therapist was named Dr. Ellison. Mid-50s, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of careful stillness that either meant deep training or deep exhaustion. He came in on day 3 with a folder and a neutral expression. "Let's go through your intake assessment," he said. Marcus nodded. Dr. Ellison read. Not aloud, to himself first. His eyes moved across the first page with the pace of someone reviewing something routine, and then they slowed, then stopped. The room stayed quiet. "Can you tell me?" Dr. Ellison said without looking up. "Who completed this assessment?" "I assumed you did." "I didn't." He turned the folder slightly, as if repositioning it would help him understand what he was looking at. Then he turned one more page. His jaw shifted. He set the folder down on the desk between them. Gently, deliberately, the way you set something down when you suddenly understand its weight. "This isn't clinical," he said quietly. Not to Marcus exactly, more to the room. "This is a script." Marcus didn't move. Dr. Ellison tapped a single line near the bottom of the second page. His finger stayed there. "Patient requires extended observation pending board transition clearance." Board transition clearance, not a clinical term, not a diagnostic category, a corporate phrase. The kind that lived in shareholder agreements and succession clauses, not intake assessments for a behavioral health facility. Someone had written it there and assumed no one would notice, or assumed the person it described would be too destabilized to notice, or assumed the therapist reading it wouldn't know the difference. They had miscalculated on all 3. Dr. Ellison didn't make a speech. He didn't promise anything. He closed the folder, asked Marcus to wait, and left the room with a steadiness that felt like the opposite of urgency. What happened next took 11 days. It wasn't dramatic, either. No courtroom, no confrontation in a boardroom with a view. There was a licensing board inquiry into the facility's intake procedures. There were questions about who had authorized Marcus's admission, and on what basis. There were emails, the ones Marcus had sent before they took his phone, sitting in the inboxes of 2 board members and his company's legal counsel, time-stamped Thursday morning, an hour before his parents arrived. He'd known something was wrong before he'd known what it was. Marcus was discharged on a Tuesday. His father called that afternoon. Marcus let it go to voicemail. He sat in his car outside his apartment, windows down, listening to the neighborhood move around him. Someone's dog, someone's radio, a kid on a bike who almost clipped the curb and laughed about it. He had a company meeting on Thursday. He didn't know yet what the room would feel like when he walked in. Whether people would look at him differently, or whether they'd been told enough that they'd try not to look at all. He didn't know which was worse. He suspected he'd find out, and then he'd deal with it, and eventually that would become something he used to go through. The voicemail notification sat on his screen. He didn't delete it. He didn't play it. He just drove home.